On the politics of this, should Tony Abbott have found a reason to be there or at least send somebody along?
Oh, I don't think it would have hurt. I don't. I think there was a captive audience there. There's plenty of coalition supporters in that crowd. And the one tax... the actual solid tax promise that came out of it was Gillard promised in the next May budget that companies which make a loss will be able to claim losses, right? So it's to help those doing it tough or spending big to restructure. Now, that was very similar to Malcolm Turnbull when he was leader. It was a policy he announced to help companies with the financial crisis in his 2009 budget speech. It wouldn't have hurt Joe Hockey or Andrew Robb to sidle in there, stick that idea up and get applauded by business for doing it.
I disagree on that. I just think there would be no upside for the opposition. I think Tony Abbott
they could have
exactly
stolen
the
a
right
bit of the
strategy
thunder.
for
They could
him,
have nicked the big idea.
Well, but you're then stuck in this situation where he would have either had to kind of go along with the folksy goodwill, bonhomie about it all, and kind of get co-opted by the process, or be a rock thrower.
Yeah, but then they did allow Julia Gillard to look sort of prime ministerial. Had they turned up, of course, they would have had to deal with this from Jamie Briggs, one of their own backbenchers.
I mean, let's not forget the GST in the first place was meant to be applied to food and services. I think it has to be discussed. I mean, if you're serious about having a tax forum...
Look, it's just a view from a backbencher. It's not our policy. We have no intention whatsoever of making any change in this area. In this particular area, the government and the opposition are in absolute lockstep.
I think this is the problem. Jamie Briggs is absolutely right there, and it's the next step forward in tax reform, which is basically one way or another recommended by the Henry Review in one way or another. The government knows it's the case because they were against the GST in the first place. They're not going to go there, and Tony Abbott doesn't want to take any notice off cost of living pressures and so forth, and not going to be talking about increasing or extending taxes.
Now is not the time.
But
how could you possibly, in a minority government, start talking about broadening the base of the GST?
This is the lovely contrast. You know, the Treasurer said to everyone that tax forum, everything's up for discussion. I'm not going to be judgmental. And a lot of people were saying the same thing as Briggs, including some of the state treasurers, you know, sotto voce.
Yeah.
But as soon as Briggs said it on Adelaide Radio, Swanee was out the door and punching him to death in a press conference, then went back inside again to talk about harmonisation.
Call him prominent in the process.
On the business taxes, basically what they're saying is we're not going to go down the path of further cutting the company tax rate. Even though, as Ken Henry said, cutting the company tax rate is good for workers, and it's something that the ACTU couldn't get their head around, and a lot of people can't get their head around, although it is true in tax theory and probably in practice. Instead, they're going to basically give some money to manufacturers who might be losing money with the high dollar.